I still remember the weight of that bouquet in my hands. Red roses her favorite, and a bottle of wine I had been saving for months. It was a Friday evening, and I had just returned from a week-long business trip in Seattle. All I wanted was to surprise my wife to see her smile to hold her again. But when I pulled into my driveway, 2 police cars sat there with their lights flashing. My wife stood on the porch, pointed directly at me, and screamed, "That is him. He is trespassing. Remove him from my property." What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my home, and the woman I had loved for 7 years. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. My name is Barnaby, and I need to take you back to where it all began, so you can understand how I ended up handcuffed in front of my own house. I met Megan 8 years ago at a small coffee shop in Portland. She was 23 then, fresh out of college, working her first real job at a marketing firm downtown. I was 26, a software engineer who spent too many hours staring at computer screens and not enough time living life. When she walked into that coffee shop, something shifted in me. She had this energy about her, this light that made everyone around her feel alive. We talked for 3 hours that first day, and by the end of it, I knew I wanted to spend every day like that. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. Those years were filled with late-night conversations, road trips up the coast, and dreams we built together like castles in the sand. When she said yes, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Our wedding was small, just close friends and family held in my Aunt Martha's backyard under a canopy of string lights. Megan cried when she said her vows, and I believed every word that came out of her mouth. The first 4 years of our marriage were everything I had hoped for. We were a team. She supported my career, and I supported hers. I never cared that she made less money than me. Money was never what our relationship was about, or so I thought. We laughed together, cooked together, and planned a future that seemed brighter with each passing day. The house we lived in was not just any house. It was my father's house, the house he built with his own 2 hands 40 years before I was born. My father, Harold, was a carpenter by trade and an artist by nature. Every beam, every floorboard, every corner of that house carried his fingerprints, his sweat, his love. I grew up running through those halls, sitting on the porch with him, while he told me stories about life, watching him tend to the garden he planted when I was just a boy. 3 years ago, my father passed away from a heart attack. It was sudden, unexpected, and it shattered me in ways I am still piecing together. He left me the house in his will, the only thing of real value he had. The property deed was in my name, and my name alone. It was his final gift to me, a piece of him that I could hold on to forever. When Megan and I first moved in after our wedding, she seemed to appreciate the house. She talked about its charm, its history, the way the afternoon light came through the kitchen windows. But after my father passed, and the house became officially mine, something changed. She started suggesting we sell it, move somewhere more modern, somewhere that fit her vision of success. I refused. This house was not just property to me. It was my father's legacy, my childhood, my roots. That was our first real disagreement, and looking back, I should have seen it as a warning sign. About 18 months before that terrible Friday night, Megan got promoted to a senior position at her company. At first, I was proud of her, genuinely happy to see her succeed. But the promotion changed her in ways I did not expect. She started traveling more for work sometimes 2 or 3 times a month. Her wardrobe transformed from casual and comfortable to designer labels and high heels. She spent hours in front of the mirror perfecting her makeup, styling her hair in ways she never had before. Then came the late-night phone calls. She would step outside or into another room, speaking in hushed tones, laughing quietly at things I was never part of. When I asked who she was talking to, she always said it was work. "You would not understand," she would say. "It is complicated corporate stuff." She started comparing me to people at her office. "Marcus drives a Tesla," she would say, or "Jessica's husband just got them a condo downtown." The comparisons were subtle at first, but they grew sharper over time, and the house my father's house became her favorite target. She called it outdated embarrassing beneath her new status. I tried to make her happy. I renovated the bathroom, updated the kitchen appliances, painted the walls in colors she chose. But nothing was ever enough for her. My Aunt Martha came to visit about a year ago. She was 71 years old, sharp as a tack, and she had known Megan since the wedding. After just 2 days in our home, she pulled me aside. "Barnaby," she said, her voice low and serious. "Something is not right with that woman. She looks at you like you are an obstacle, not a husband." I dismissed her concerns. I told myself Megan was just stressed from work, that things would get better once she settled into her new role. I was wrong. When I received the notification about the Seattle business trip, I expected Megan to be disappointed. A whole week apart, after all. But her reaction caught me off guard. She smiled almost too brightly and said, "That is great, honey. You deserve a break from all the stress here." There was something in her eyes that night, a flicker of something I could not name. I pushed the thought aside and focused on packing my bags. I had no idea what was waiting for me when I returned. The week in Seattle was grueling. Back-to-back meetings, late-night coding sessions, and a hotel room that felt more like a prison cell than a place to rest. Despite everything, I made time to call Megan every evening. But something was off. She rarely answered, and when she did, the conversations were short, distracted, filled with excuses about being tired or busy. On the fourth night, I called her at 11 p.m. The phone rang 5 times before she picked up. Her voice was breathless, rushed. "Barnaby, I cannot talk right now. I am about to go to sleep." But in the background, I heard something that made my stomach drop. A voice. A man's voice, deep and unfamiliar, followed by laughter that was definitely not coming from a television. "Who is that?" I asked, my heart pounding. "It is just the TV," she said quickly. "I have to go. Good night." The line went dead. I could not sleep that night. I lay in my hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call over and over in my mind. By morning, I had convinced myself I was being paranoid. But the doubt had planted its seed, and it was growing fast. I decided to check our joint bank account, something I rarely did since Megan handled most of our finances. What I found made my blood run cold. Transactions at upscale restaurants I had never heard of, charges at a boutique hotel downtown, purchases at jewelry stores that I had certainly never authorized. The spending had been going on for months, hidden in plain sight while I was too trusting to look. I made a decision. I would come home a day early on Thursday instead of Friday. I told myself it was to surprise her, to rekindle the romance that seemed to be fading. But deep down, I knew the truth. I needed to see for myself what was happening in my own home. When I pulled into my driveway that Thursday evening at 7 p.m., my heart was already racing. And then I saw it. A sleek black BMW parked in the garage in the spot where my car usually sat. I did not recognize the vehicle. It definitely did not belong to anyone I knew. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside quietly, my shoes barely making a sound on the hardwood floors my father had installed decades ago. Music drifted from the living room, something soft and jazzy, the kind of music Megan and I never listened to together. And then I heard laughter. Her laughter mixed with a deeper voice I did not recognize. I moved through the hallway like a ghost in my own home, my pulse thundering in my ears. When I reached the corner that led to the living room, I stopped. What I saw in that moment is burned into my memory forever. Megan was sitting in a man's lap on our sofa. The same sofa where my father used to sit every morning reading his newspaper, drinking his coffee. The man had his arms wrapped around her waist, and she was leaning into him laughing at something he said. On the coffee table sat an open bottle of wine. Not just any wine. The bottle of Chateau Margaux I had been saving for our 5th anniversary. They were drinking it like it meant nothing. The man, I would later learn his name, was Derek was speaking. His voice was confident, almost arrogant. When this house gets sold, he said, we will have more than enough to start fresh. Maybe that beach house we talked about in California. Megan giggled and kissed his cheek. I cannot wait, she whispered. My world collapsed in that moment. Everything I had built, everything I had believed about my marriage crumbled like sand through my fingers. I stepped out from the hallway, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. What is going on here? Megan's head snapped toward me. For 1 second, maybe 2, I saw genuine fear in her eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by something harder, colder. She stood up, smoothing her dress, and her entire demeanor shifted. You were supposed to come back tomorrow, she said, her voice sharp. Why are you here? Derek rose from the sofa, straightening his shirt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of smug confidence that made me want to put my fist through his face. He did not look ashamed. He looked annoyed, like I was interrupting something important. Megan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Who is this man? What is he doing in my house? She laughed, actually laughed. Your house, she repeated, crossing her arms. I live here too, Barnaby, and I have moved on. Derek and I have been together for almost a year now. I want you to leave. I stood my ground. This is my house, I said. My father built it. My name is on the deed. I am not going anywhere. Megan's eyes narrowed. I have looked into this, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. We are married, which means everything is shared. I have just as much right to be here as you do, and I do not want you here anymore. You are harassing me. Derek stepped forward, puffing out his chest. Look, man, he said, just be mature about this. Accept reality and walk away. Make this easy on everyone. I turned to face him directly. Get out of my house, now. Megan pulled out her phone. If you do not leave in the next 30 seconds, she said, I am calling the police. I will tell them you are trespassing, that you are threatening me. Who do you think they will believe, the hysterical wife or the angry husband who just caught her with another man? I did not move. I could not. This was my home. My father's legacy, the only thing I had left of him. I was not going to be chased out by the woman who had betrayed me, and the man she had betrayed me with. Megan dialed 911. As she spoke to the dispatcher, her voice transformed. Suddenly, she was crying, sobbing, playing the victim with an acting performance that deserved an award. Please help me, she cried into the phone. My estranged husband broke into my home. I am scared for my life. Please send someone quickly." She hung up and looked at me with a smile that chilled me to the bone. We will see who this house really belongs to. The police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers stepped out of their vehicles, hands resting cautiously on their belts. The first one, a middle-aged man with graying hair and a weathered face, introduced himself as Officer Thompson. The second was younger, maybe late 20s, with observant eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His name tag read Rodriguez. Megan ran toward them before they even reached the porch. The tears were flowing freely now, her body shaking with manufactured sobs. "Thank God you are here," she cried. "That man," she pointed at me, "he is my estranged husband. We have been separated for months. He showed up here tonight, broke into my home, and threatened me. I am terrified." Derek had positioned himself behind her, nodding solemnly, playing the role of concerned witness. "I was just here visiting," he said smoothly, when this guy burst through the door. He was aggressive, confrontational. I was worried he might hurt someone. Officer Thompson approached me, his expression stern. "Sir, I need you to step away from the door. Can you tell me what is going on here?" I tried to explain. I opened my mouth to tell them that this was my house, that Megan was my wife, that I had just discovered her affair. But every time I started speaking, Megan interrupted with louder sobs, more dramatic declarations of fear. She was controlling the narrative, and Thompson was buying every word. "Sir," Thompson said, his patience clearly wearing thin, "I need you to put your hands behind your back. We are going to sort this out, but for now, I need to secure the situation." Before I could protest, I felt the cold metal of handcuffs clicking around my wrists. I was being arrested in front of my own home on the porch my father had built with his own hands. Megan stood a few feet away, dabbing at her crocodile tears, while Derek draped his arm around her shoulders like he belonged there, like he was the man of the house. But Officer Rodriguez had not said a word. While Thompson processed the scene based on Megan's theatrics, Rodriguez stood back watching, observing. I noticed his eyes moving between me, Megan, and Derek as if he was putting together a puzzle that did not quite fit. Finally, he stepped forward. "Sir," he said to me, his voice calm and professional, "do you have any identification on you?" I nodded. "My wallet is in my back pocket." Rodriguez retrieved my wallet and examined my driver's license. His eyebrows raised slightly as he read the address. It was this address, this house. He looked up at me, then back at the license, then over at Megan. "Ma'am," he said, turning to face her, "can you show me the property deed or any documentation proving you own this residence?" Megan's tears stopped abruptly. She blinked, caught off guard. The paperwork is somewhere inside. I do not have it on me right now, but I live here. I am his wife." Rodriguez remained calm. "I understand. But I would like to verify ownership through our system before we proceed. Would you mind waiting here for a few minutes while I run a check?" Megan's face tightened, but she nodded. Derek shifted uncomfortably beside her. Rodriguez returned to his patrol car. The next 10 minutes felt like hours. I stood there in handcuffs, my wrists aching. My pride shattered, while the woman who had vowed to love me until death watched with cold satisfaction. Thompson kept guard, making sure I did not move, while Megan whispered something to Derek that made him smirk. When Rodriguez came back, his expression had changed. He walked directly to Thompson and spoke quietly, showing him something on his phone. Thompson's face went through a series of emotions. confusion, recognition, embarrassment. Rodriguez addressed us all. According to county records, this property is registered solely to Barnaby, inherited from Harold 3 years ago. There is no co-ownership, no joint deed, nothing indicating that anyone else has legal claim to this residence. Megan's face went pale. "That cannot be right," she sputtered. "We are married. Marital property laws." Rodriguez cut her off, still calm. Inherited property acquired before or during marriage does not automatically become marital property unless there is a legal agreement specifying otherwise. Do you have such an agreement? She did not answer. She could not. Thompson walked over to me, his demeanor completely changed. "Sir, I apologize for the misunderstanding." He unlocked the handcuffs and I felt the blood rush back into my wrists. "It appears this is indeed your residence." I rubbed my wrists, but I was not done yet. I looked at Rodriguez. "I want to file a complaint. My wife and this man have been trespassing in my home. She attempted to have me wrongfully arrested. I want documentation of everything that happened tonight." Rodriguez nodded. "Absolutely. We can help you with that." Megan's composure cracked completely. "Barnaby, wait." She pleaded, her voice suddenly soft, desperate. "I made a mistake. I was confused, stressed from work. I still love you. We can work this out." I looked at her. Really looked at her for what felt like the first time in years. The woman standing before me was a stranger. The Megan I had fallen in love with at that coffee shop, the woman who had cried at our wedding, she was gone. Maybe she had never really existed at all. "You have 30 minutes to gather your personal belongings and leave my house," I said. My voice did not waver. "After that, you are trespassing." I turned to Derek, who was already backing toward his car. "And you. Get off my property now before I press charges." Derek practically ran to his BMW. No goodbye to Megan. No heroic defense of their love. Just a coward fleeing when things got real. The engine roared to life and he was gone before Megan even finished processing what was happening. The officers stayed while Megan packed a single suitcase, her hands trembling as she gathered her things. She tried to speak to me several times, but I had nothing left to say. When she finally walked out the door, she turned back one last time. "You will regret this," she whispered. I watched her get into the car. Derek had circled back to fetch her in. As they drove away, I felt something I did not expect. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just an overwhelming emptiness mixed with the faintest hint of relief. I called Kevin that night. He was my best friend from college now, a divorce attorney with a reputation for being thorough and fair. "I need you to start the paperwork," I told him. "I want this done as quickly and cleanly as possible." After I hung up, I walked through the empty house. Every room held memories, some beautiful, some now tainted. I ended up in the living room, staring at the sofa where I had found them together. My father's sofa. I sat down in the exact spot where he used to sit, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry. The first nights alone in that house were brutal. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps. Every shadow in the hallway made my heart race. I would wake up at 3 a.m., reaching for someone who was no longer there, and then spend the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, asking myself questions I could not answer. Where did I go wrong? When did she stop loving me? Had she ever really loved me at all? Or had I just been convenient a stepping stone on her way to something better? The questions circled endlessly, vultures picking at the carcass of my self-worth. Some nights I would sit on the front porch in the same spot where my father used to sit with me when I was a boy. I would look up at the stars and talk to him, even though I knew he could not hear me. "I tried, Dad," I would whisper. "I really tried." Aunt Martha showed up on my doorstep a week after everything fell apart. She did not call ahead, did not ask permission. She just appeared with 2 suitcases and a casserole dish, announcing that she would be staying as long as necessary. For the first time in days, I almost smiled. She cooked meals I did not ask for and cleaned rooms I had neglected. But more importantly, she listened. Night after night, she sat with me in the kitchen while I poured out everything: the betrayal, the humiliation, the crushing weight of failure. She never judged, never offered empty platitudes. She just listened, and sometimes that was exactly what I needed. The divorce proceedings were uglier than I had hoped. Megan hired an aggressive attorney who tried every angle possible to claim a portion of the house. Marital property, she argued. 7 years of marriage, she insisted. Contributions to the household, she claimed. But the law was clear. Inherited property remained separate unless legally converted. There was no agreement, no documentation, nothing that gave Megan any claim to what my father had left me. When the judge ruled in my favor, Megan tried one more desperate move. She requested spousal support, arguing that she had grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle during our marriage. But her own income worked against her. A senior marketing position with a healthy salary left no grounds for alimony, especially given that she was the one who had destroyed the marriage through infidelity. The divorce was finalized 4 months after that terrible Friday night. I signed the papers in Kevin's office, feeling like I was closing a book I had never wanted to read in the first place. About 2 weeks after everything was settled, Kevin called me with news. Megan and Derek had split up. Apparently, Derek had a wife and 2 children in another city, a detail he had conveniently forgotten to mention during his affair. When his wife found out, she took him for everything he had in the divorce. Megan was left with nothing but the consequences of her choices. I wish I could say I felt satisfaction hearing that news, but I did not. I just felt tired. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I started by reclaiming the house room by room. I donated everything that reminded me of Megan. The artwork she had chosen, the curtains she had insisted on, the kitchen gadgets she had ordered but never used. I replaced them with things that felt like me, things that felt like my father. I repainted the bedroom in the same shade of blue it had been when I was a child. I hung my father's old photographs on the walls, images I had stored away because Megan thought they were too old-fashioned. I planted new flowers in the garden. He had started varieties I remembered him talking about, but never got around to planting himself. Kevin introduced me to a group of men who met every Thursday night at a community center downtown. They were all divorced, all carrying their own wounds, all trying to figure out how to move forward. At first, I just listened. Their stories were different from mine, but the pain was the same. Over time, I started sharing too, and something strange happened. The more I talked about what I had been through, the less power it held over me. I took up running something my father had done every morning until his heart gave out. 5 a.m., before the sun came up, I would lace up my shoes and hit the pavement. Those early morning miles became my meditation, my therapy, my way of processing everything I could not put into words. One morning, about 6 months after the divorce, I was sitting on the front porch with a cup of coffee. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The garden was blooming. The house was quiet, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt something like peace. I thought about Megan, but not with anger. I thought about what she had lost, not just me, but herself. She had traded something real for something hollow, and in the end she was left with neither. I did not hate her. Hate takes energy, and I had spent too much energy on her already. What I felt was closer to pity, mixed with a strange kind of gratitude. She had shown me who she really was, and in doing so she had set me free. My father once told me something that I did not understand until that moment on the porch. He said that a house becomes a home when you fill it with love, not with people. For years I thought having Megan there made this place complete. I was wrong. The love that made this house a home was not hers. It was my father's. It was mine. And it always had been. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe I will meet someone new. Maybe I will spend the rest of my days in this house alone, tending to my father's garden and watching the seasons change. Either way, I know one thing for certain. I am exactly where I belong. If you have made it this far in my story, I want to thank you for listening. I shared this not for sympathy, but because I know there are others out there going through something similar. Maybe you are being manipulated by someone you trusted. Maybe you feel trapped in a situation that seems impossible. Maybe you are wondering if things will ever get better. They will. Not overnight, not easily, but they will. I have a question for you, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in a moment when everyone seemed to be against you? How did you find the strength to do it? Let me know below. If this story touched you in any way, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories like this one. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for being here. Wherever you are watching from whatever you are going through, I hope you find your peace. I hope you find your home. Take care of yourself.